Hello! This is Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from the beautiful metaverse, and more specifically from beautiful Danville, Illinois, homeland of the Corellian tradition. And this is Midday with Reverend Don. And as you know, if you follow Midday with Reverend Don, you can type your questions or comments on most platforms that you might be watching on. They'll show up here in my chat room and we can talk directly, assuming that you're watching live. Obviously, if you're watching later the recorded version, that will not be true. But if you're watching live, we can talk directly. And I hope you're having a lovely day. And our subject for today is the upcoming solar eclipse ritual. And as you probably know, next week on April 8th will be a total solar eclipse, which will be visible from some parts of North America. It will be visible from here in Danville and various parts um, of the United States. Hello to Bimby in the chat room. Bimby is watching from beautiful Portland, Oregon. And I don't think they will get to see the totality of the eclipse in Oregon, but we will see it here. In Danville, I think we're getting like 98%. So not quite the whole thing, but we're close to the locations where you can see all of it. I will be doing my ritual here in Danville. And I will be talking today a bit about that ritual. I'll be going over it on April 8th and actually doing it around the time of the totality of the equinox, which will be about half an hour after this program, about 1 p.m. Central Time. And I'll come on a few minutes before that. And hello to Vivian in the chat room. Vivian is in Missouri and is really thinking of going farther south to Missouri to see the designated to the designated parks. I think that would be lovely. It's going to be quite a while, I believe, before we have another one. The point of the ritual, it has a couple of points, but the obvious one is to attune to the energy of the eclipse. And we've been working with eclipses for a long time with the crystal web and in the Corellian tradition. I've talked before about my understanding of the eclipse. I see eclipses as being about rebirth and regeneration. Um, I know there are people who take a more fear-based approach to their understanding of eclipses. I'm obviously not one of them. And, I generally don't encourage fear-based approaches to anything in metaphysics. And hello to Antonio in the chat room. And I believe Antonio is watching from Peoria. Hello to Janet in the chat room. Good to see you, Janet. So our goal is to attune to that sense of revitalization and rebirth. Not the moment when the light of the sun disappears, but the moment when it returns. And that's always been our focus in these ceremonies. Now, we are also focusing on releasing things when the sun disappears, but it's the manifestation of its return. And Antonio says a very rainy Peoria. I'm sure it is. It was here earlier. It is still overcast, but not raining now. But all night long, we had quite the thunderstorm. It was very exciting. Um, so these are the things that you should be thinking about if you wish to join this ritual. You can join it from anywhere. You don't have to be watching me do it. We'll be going over what to do today and also on Monday. For how you can join it. And you can join it from anywhere you happen to be. And basically, we'll be using the crystal web and our crystal access points. And hello to Nikki in the chat room. It's good to see you, Nikki. To open the crystal web, to attune the web itself to the eclipse energy, but also to attune ourselves to that energy. And I, in particular, am going to be working on this local area. Hello to Brenda in the chat room. And I was actually just with Brenda before the program at the site of the coming lustration, which is quite a beautiful building. And we'll be sharing much more news with you about that as well. If you've never been to a lustration, lustrations are a uniquely magical event. And this particular one more than most because it's both a lustration and an investiture. And, the whole thing is a major energetic working. A lot of people tend to perhaps focus on the ritual aspect, but ritual is only how we focus energy. And hello to Renee in the chat room. And this is all about energy. And I've had people tell me that the kind of energy they encounter at lustrations, they don't encounter elsewhere, which, when you consider the number of priesthood and particularly high priesthood who come together at lustration and archpriesthood, the amount of energy they raise is very significant. And I've had people say they'd never encountered such energy before attending a lustration. So if you're able to come, I highly recommend it. Um, it is very much worth the experience, and we'll be telling you much more about it as we go forward. In addition to which, the entire thing is very beautiful, and it's a wonderful time to get to know um, your fellow Corellians and fellow travelers who may be present. It is always a good time. It is always quite the energetic adventure. And so hopefully you'll join us for that. And part of this ceremony is preparing for that. And I was just about to say that part of what I am doing is attuning this area, the Corellian homeland, to that energy of rebirth and um, to bringing back the strength of this area. If you've been in this part of the world, you'll see that over the years, um, a lot of things have left here. It's true throughout all of the rural United States. Danville isn't exactly rural, but it's surrounded by rural areas. And you can certainly see the difference versus 40 years ago. And I really want to bring that energy of rebirth to this area, and particularly in the sense of being the Corellian homeland. So for me, that is a major part of this ceremony, and perhaps hopefully for you as well. The first solar eclipse ceremony that we did with the crystal web was May 10th of 1994. I think I mentioned it the other day and may have misquoted the year, but it was May 10th, 1994. And hello to Rev Cosmic, Cosmic Eclipse in the chat room. It's good to see you. And when we did that, it was for basically this same purpose. It was to attune to that energy of rebirth. And we particularly focused on the iconography of the great dragon of the universe, that at this time, the light of the sun is momentarily obscured and then returns in all its glory. And our focus again is on that return. Yes, we do want to focus on things that we wish to release, but we also want to focus on the return of the good things that we are aiming for. And at that time, we did particularly focus on the eventual return of Corellianism to this area. And I think that in future, we're going to see a lot more activity here. As I was saying just yesterday, I really wasn't expecting to be here at this time in life. I thought we were talking years in the future, but the energy of the time, the hand of spirit has placed me here now in time for this particular working. And that's kind of how spirit works. Things line up without your necessarily having played any role in it. They line up the way they're meant to. So the ceremony is going to be focused for individuals on their personal rebirth, for the crystal web on the rebirth and strengthening of energy in general, and for this area on the energetic rebirth of the Corellian homeland. Now, if you want to take part in the ritual, what do you need? There are a couple of different answers. The first question is, and hello to Reverend Mary in the chat room, and hello to Joseph. Goddess loves you, Joseph. Um, but depending on whether you have a crystal access point or not, you may want to create one. Um, And for that, you will need a crystal. It can be any crystal, it can be a quartz crystal, it can be anything else. Um, if you do have one, then what I'm going to recommend, and I think either way, is that you have a special crystal to charge in connection to this event that then you can keep on your altar or keep with you. And the ideal crystal for this event, what we would normally use is a sunstone. And hello to Swagfan in the chat room. It's good to see you. If you're not familiar with a sunstone, they are kind of white and caramel colored. They look a little bit like butterscotch ice cream, for want of a better way to describe them. Um, how much how much white and how much golden brown they will have will depend on the individual sunstone. But that is what would be ideal for a solar eclipse ritual. Um, Other things that would be good, a citrine would be very good. Goldstone could be good. And of course, plain quartz crystal is always good. As a general rule for attuning with solar eclipses, I try to use sunstone and moonstone for lunar eclipses. But that doesn't mean those are the only things you can use. I'm a great believer in, we use what we have. It can be an ordinary river rock and be just as effective if that is what spirit gives you to use. And what we want to do is to charge this stone during that moment of the eclipse with this energy of rebirth and focus it into the crystal web. And um, I'm telling you the stone you need now in case you do wish to partake so that you have a whole week to get one. I will probably be choosing one on Saturday at Earth Spirit Emporium because I know they have sunstones, and I'll be getting one just for this purpose. And it will later join the other stones that have been charged at previous solar eclipses and lunar eclipses um, that are with my altar. Sometimes they're on the altar, sometimes they're in the drawers underneath, but they're always there to keep that energy around. And when I particularly want that energy of rebirth, they're there to be drawn upon. It's very similar to the idea of making lustral water at a particular. So, for example, I was gifted with lustral water from the recent lunar eclipse, which serves that same purpose of preserving that energy in an energetic form that you can use when it's convenient for you. And charging the stone is for the same purpose. So, um, take this time this week to find the stone that you want. And if you don't already have a crystal access point, this is a good time to create one. Now, I have many crystal access points. The crystal web was founded by Sir Edward on the 8th of August, 1988. Those who are old enough to remember will know that that was a major harmonic convergence, and it's been growing ever since. It was founded in Chicago. It came to Danville and the Corellian tradition in the 90s. And as I say, we created our first access point here in Danville in 1994. And we also tied into some older um, buried crystals that existed and turned them into access points. Um, but they were after that period. But the crystal web has since gone all over the world. And how do you create a crystal access point? Well, let us take a moment and look at that. And if you don't already have one, you will know what to do. So, what you will want to create it will be a crystal. If you actually want to get a crystal, this would be a good time for that. Um, and we'll go through it in a few minutes. But you can also tune back into the recorded broadcast at a later point and and go through it yourself at that time, or simply take note of the instructions. They're not difficult. And in fact, there are more than one way that people create crystal access points. Um, Depending on your skill with energy, you actually can simply hook into it. Um, but I use a particular form for creating my access points, and I think most people follow that form. So in a couple of moments, I'll go through that. And to create an access point, most people use a clear quartz crystal. You can also create a crystal grid for an access point, and there have been some quite elaborate grids created over the years. At Cricket Hill in Chicago, there was a very elaborate crystal grid created um, as part of the access point there, and a number of other places. And you can use any stone or crystal for this purpose. If you're using just one, it can still be any stone that seems appropriate to you or that spirit has placed in your path. Most commonly, people do use clear quartz crystal. But it also depends on how you plan to interact with the web. People interact with it in many ways. On Thursday, we're going to talk a little bit more about that, different ways you can interact with the crystal web. But say that you really want to use it more for purposes of energetic healing. You would want to choose stones that would have relevance to that. Um, and what stones might you choose for that? I think I would personally probably choose, oh, maybe something like an Amazonite, maybe a malachite. I would look among the green stones personally, although I know some people prefer blue. But in that range, if you're looking more for psychic development, you might want to look at something like a lapis lazuli or an amethyst, or something in that range. But usually people just use a clear quartz because, like a white candle, it's good for all purposes. And most people use their crystal access point for many different things. We use it often for global healing. We use it often for communication. It's regularly used in the global healing prayers that we do. Every month, there's a crystal access or a crystal web ritual that uses the access points. And these are some of the things people do with it, and then they use it in their personal life as well. If you want to do spiritual healing and you need the use of additional batteries, which is always beneficial, the crystal web is probably the largest battery you could possibly tie into. So let us take a moment and talk about what you would do to create a crystal access point. So you would take your crystal and you would begin by creating the place that you plan to put your access point. Usually a hole in the ground. You want to make it deep enough that random animals aren't going to dig it up. And you want to prepare that first. Then you would create a circle. Um, you don't absolutely have to use the circle. Um, you can or you cannot, depending on whether you feel that you need the energy that a circle provides. Commonly, one uses a circle. And then you will take your crystal and put it between your hands. And you want to call into yourself the energies of the universe. And of course, you want to clear and release before you begin, as you always do. But call into yourself the energies of the universe, let them fill you. Imagine above your crystal a tetrahedron of white light. That is to say, a three-dimensional triangle of white light. And imagine it spinning clockwise. And see this as clearly as you can. And in your heart, become aware of a ball of white light. There in your heart chakra, a beautiful clear white light shining out in all directions. And fill this with the energies of the universe. And now, from that ball of white light, into that tetrahedron of white light, you want to send forth a beam of green light. Green, the color of the heart chakra. And send that beam of green light into that spinning tetrahedron above your crystal. And see it fill with green light from your heart chakra. filling with your energy and the energy of the universe, filling it completely so that it shines with a beautiful green light. And as it fills with the green light, the flow will change the energetic construct from a tetrahedron to a cube, still spinning clockwise. And as you send that light forward, when you see that change, you will also feel that energy begin to flow back into you. When your tetrahedron switches to a cube, which means that it is open, then that light, that green light, will flow back into your heart chakra and it will fill your entire body. Let it fill your entire body, going to every part of you, filling your entire aura with beautiful green light, and in particular, going down your arms into your hands and filling your crystal that you are charging. And see that crystal filled with the green light so that it's shining out in all directions like a green sun. Now you take your crystal, you place it into the vessel you have prepared for it, into the hole, you cover it over. Some people do place it sometimes into other things. They're sometimes placed in buildings. But at this time you will seal it. You'll place both hands directly over it and focus white light down into the earth and into the buried crystal. And you want to take a moment to link the crystal to the crystal web. You may want to say a little incantation affirming this. How you say it doesn't really matter. You're instructing it to connect to the crystal web. Continue to fill it with white energy, and in a few moments you should feel it connect. You may just feel this as a knowing, or you may actually see lines of white light shooting off to connect with other crystal access points. And it doesn't matter how you perceive it, but you'll know when it has happened. And then you can stop sending the energy and allow the image of the crystal to fade, the image of the cube to fade. And you've created your crystal access point. And when you want to reopen that access point, what you will do is you will connect to it from your heart. You will see the crystal in a tetrahedron of white light, well, in its cube of white light, turning clockwise. You'll fill it with the white light. It will turn back into a tetrahedron. And that's when you know it's open. And when you're done, you let it close on its own, because they're set up to know how to close. And those are simple instructions for how to create a crystal access point. But if you want to learn a little bit more about it, you can go to Corellian.com/crystal-web.html. And there are instructions there. Once you've created it, you can open it and use it anytime you want. And as I say, you can use it for psychic communication, you can use it for psychic healing, you can use it for magic, you can use it for anything that you would want to have extra energy for. And also, most commonly, it's used for group rituals to connect many people together, as will be the case with this ritual for the solar eclipse. And I hope that you will join me for that. And as I say, I'll be talking about it on Monday at my normal hour. But the actual totality of the eclipse will hit here closer to 1 p.m., about an hour after I normally go online. I may stay on for that period of time, but I suspect I will go off and come back on at about 10 till, because I actually want to be outdoors to do this. And I hope that you'll join me for that ritual. I think that you will find the energetic qualities to be remarkable. I find that people who have not dealt with the crystal web when it is opened have often been almost overcome by the amount of energy that they're dealing with. Not in a bad way, but just surprising if you have not dealt with it before. It's a lot of energy. And again, this is true of lustrations as well. When you get a lot of powerful magical workers together, focusing their energy, you get a lot of energy. And um, not only that, but when people come together, their energy is magnified by being together. This is the one reason that group work can be superior to individual work for certain things, because it magnifies all of the energy. The people themselves become energetic batteries for one another, as well as any energetic battery they're creating. And hello to Lord Jason in the chat room. Good to see you, Jason. I'll always remember um, one of our priestesses, who later became a high priestess, told me that when she came to her first lustration, when we held it in Salem, Massachusetts, she was asked to do the blessing of the fire and the water. Um, I don't remember which one she was doing, but she said that she got there and she found herself shaking like a leaf at the altar, finding it very hard um, to keep herself physically under control. And she didn't understand what was happening. And then, as she performed the blessing and turned around to bless the circle, she noticed all of the people doing this, focusing energy on her to aid her in the blessing. And she said she had never felt such strong energy previously. So when you come to lustration, do expect to feel more energy, perhaps than you've ever felt previously, because they are very high energy events. This is one reason people often like to have their initiations at lustration, because there are so many people present, so much energy raised in general, that it is a more powerful experience um, than what you might have in other places. It is everything at lustration is very transformational. And between now and the lustration, maybe we'll bring some people on to talk about their experiences. Um, the reason that I can say all of this is people have spoken to me over the years about how lustrations affected them, about the effect of that energy. In fact, if you read the Corellian Times, Lady Alyssa, who is the incumbent first priestess, was talking about her first lustration and the effect of the energy. And I highly recommend that article. It's difficult to explain if you've not experienced it, and I know it more through other people's explanations because I had been dealing with this sort of energy my whole lifetime. So it didn't seem odd to me. But I found other people find it a very invigorating energy, a very powerful energy. So please consider coming to the lustration, and please do join me for the Crystal Web Solar Eclipse ritual on Monday during the solar eclipse. And with that, I see that we've come to the end of our half hour. Tomorrow we'll be discussing the latest things from Corellian Publishing. I hope you will join me for that. I hope that you've enjoyed the program. And let us close with our prayer, as we always do. Divine Mother Goddess, Divine Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you for all the things that you do in our life and for all the wonders that you place in our path. We thank you for the ability to perceive and work with energy. We thank you for the solar and lunar eclipses and all the magnificent manifestations of nature that affect our lives. And we thank you for giving those of us on a spiritual path the knowledge of how to attune to these and benefit most from them. Beloved Mother Goddess, beloved Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you with great love and thanks. And knowing you are always with us, from respect, we thank you for your presence, and may you be blessed now and always. And I thank you for your presence, and may you be blessed now and always. And I will see you